is Citi TV. We interrupt this program for some breaking news.
A very good afternoon. Welcome to our special coverage of the demonstration that has been organized by members of Arise Ghana Group, and they have been raising concerns over the deteriorating state of the economy. They've raised concerns about the fuel hikes over the period, amongst other things. We'll be going live to the demonstration grounds where we understand that there's a standoff between members of the group and also the police there. We will be establishing contact with a man on the ground, Anatufo Boateng, who is currently at the Obra Sport, where we understand that the protesters have already converged to begin their demonstration. If we have Nana Tufo on the line, Tufo, I'm grateful for joining us. And if you can hear me, please help us. What is happening currently?
Well, good afternoon, Kweku. And the situation here is currently struggling to contain the crowd. From what has happened so far, demonstrators have been pelting at the police, and the police in turn have responded with water cannons and, of course, the firing of tear gas into the crowd and pepper spray. Actually, now the protesters really had wanted to use the Nima route through to Akwaje interchange, but according to the police, this is not the agreed route. And so initially what we saw was a human barricade formed by the police to prevent the protesters to deny them access to the Nima route just around the NS chemist. The overhead is here out a circle. To give you a better picture, if you're descending from the circle interchange, you see an overhead just before it hits the First African Storage Bureau, and also just before NS Chemist, and then Prudential Bank. If you're hearing a loud bang in the background, that is the police firing tear gas as well as pepper spray. Now, the situation is that when it is fired, it travels with the wind, and so it spreads across. So really, people who are not part of the protesters are also suffering this. It really bends, it gets your nose running, your eyes tearing, and really a very uncomfortable situation to deal with. So really, police doing their best to contain the situation by not allowing protesters access through the Nima circle interchange all the way up to Akwaje. Now they are being stopped right underneath the overhead, and it looks like gradually the police is making or pushing or forcing the protesters back. That is the situation here. If you come here, you see stones in the middle of the road, stones pelted by these protesters at the police officers, and police in turn returning or responding with pepper spray. So in the middle of the road, there's stones everywhere. Police still has the human barricade. You see FTU tanks, FTU machines here. Police heavily armed, firing tear gas, and that is what you hear in the background. That loud bang into the protesting crowd. However, when you look up the overhead, you see some persons not really clad in the traditional red and black that the protesters visibly are still pelting stones at the police. And it's really a dangerous situation. You would have to be far off to be able to stay safe, because these are not small stones they are pelting. Police team advancing right behind their FPU machines, but yes, protesters also not giving up and firing stones. We see some police activity. Moves are being made to pick up persons who are pelting stones at the police.
So, Nanatufo, can you confirm to us whether or not anyone has been hurt following the firing of the tear gas and also the pelting of stones? Can you confirm if anyone has sustained any injuries following the action by both factions in this particular
that will
situation?
be difficult to tell, but we've seen a number of people, of course, running for water because they have suffered this tear gas or pepper spray. But it is difficult now to tell if anyone has sustained any injury or not. But clearly, tear gas has been fired in a bid to contain the protesters, to stop them from accessing the Nima Road. And then, of course, we've seen even some journalists who were caught in the crossfire running for water to wash their eyes, their faces, and, of course, to allow them breathe since the thickness of or the intensity of the tear gas and the pepper spray was quite high, for which reason they have had to seek some first aid by buying water from vendors or running into shops and asking for water. But as it stands now, it is really difficult to tell if any casualties have been recorded.
So, I would also want us to talk about the route that was agreed on between both factions. What is the organizers telling you with regard to the route that was agreed on before the protest was started?
Well, per the court decision yesterday, protesters were to use the Kwame Nkrumah Circle through Fariso, through TUC, to the Independence Square. It is not clear why today there's a decision to use the Nima Road through Akwaje to the Jubilee House. Remember, although that this has always been the request or the plan of the organizers of this protesters to picket at the Jubilee House till well after dark. They had wanted to stay at the Jubilee House till about 8 p.m., which decision, of course, landed them in court, where the police sought to bar them from protesting into the night. A court decision was made by the High Court for protesters to begin their demonstration between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Protest per the court instruction was to end at 4 p.m. But organizers of the demonstration insist that they have also sought a stay of execution at the appeals court. Something we do not know for certain if has been granted, and of course if police have been served bail. But organizers of the protest insist on carrying out their initial or original plan, and that is the reason why they had intended to use the Nima Road through Akwaje. National Communications Officer of the NDC earlier addressed the gathering after a meeting with the police, and insisted that they will be using the Nima Akwaje road, but will not be going to the Jubilee House anymore, but rather will be going to the ministry's area where they would stay till 8 p.m. As it stands, police insist on not allowing the protesters use the Nima Road to Akwaje, and so there's a bit of a standoff between the protesters who are pelting stones at the police, and of course the police who are returning fire with tear gas and water cannons.
So, in our shots, we've been seeing people who are washing their faces, that is following the firing of the tear gas and also the pepper spray by the police. Would you be able to tell us where some of the organizers are? Have they also been affected by this particular action by the police? Where are they now?
Well, it's difficult to tell because initially the crowd led by the organizers were on the upward side, that's the NS Chemist side. But then when the confusion started and tear gas was being fired, the stones were being pelted, we saw some of the organizers, particularly Bernard Mona, and Pablo, who happens to be the national youth organizer of the NDC. We also saw the general secretary of the NDC, Johnson Afiedin Chekia, also moved to the other side of the road, that is around the side close to the
So, I would want you to just break for a while. We are seeing some videos of people running for their lives. What can you tell us? What is happening as of now?
This is because the police team is advancing. Initially, the police had to retreat because the crowd or the protesters were tossing stones at them. But now this is the police advancing towards the protesters, and clearly persons will want to take cover or will want to run to save themselves from possible arrest or from suffering the tear gas that is being fired. So this is police advancing on the protesters to make sure that indeed they do not have access to this Lima road, and of course stick to the route as agreed upon or decided by the court.
So we know that the Ring Road stretch is a very busy road, and when we talk about the Kwame Nkrumah Circle, a lot of vehicles use this particular stretch. What can you tell us with regard to traffic? Would you say that the situation is affecting traffic and also businesses in that enclave? Can you tell us?
Clearly affecting traffic, because on the main road, vehicles that were coming or knowing what was happening ahead have been stopped and turned back. The police have turned them back. I am not sure exactly which route they are going to ask them to use, but no one is currently accessing the Circle interchange on the Ring Road stretch because it is in the middle, right at the overhead, where the overhead is, that the action is taking place. And so police have stopped all vehicles from accessing this particular stretch. Those coming from the GDC area or the Societe Generale area have been asked to turn back. So we are not sure which route they are going to take, but clearly they've been asked to turn back. Police are currently advancing on them. Now, for businesses in the area, it is difficult to operate as at yet because, one, you wouldn't have any customers at all because of the ongoing situation, and then for your own safety, it will make sense for you to close shop, either lock yourself indoors or to stay out. Okay, so from where I stand, I see two persons who have been picked up by the police. Two persons who have been picked up. They are being taken towards where the police had set base or had set camp. And so two persons picked up currently in my shots from where I stand. Two persons have been picked up. And of course, police are escorting them into or possibly into one of their vehicles. They'll be onwards transferred to either of stations after the police's decision.
So, I am sure these people, you were telling us that they have been arrested by the police. I'm sure it's because of the agitation that is being seen from their side, the pelting of stones and other actions from the protesters. Now, I would want us to talk about the protest in general. So, we were told that it was supposed to start at 8 and close at 4. As we speak now, they're still at their brass spot where they were supposed to converge. Why the delay?
Well, that was a decision by the court for the protest to start at 8 and end at 4. But for the organizers, that was never their intent. Because we just listened to an address by the National Communications Officer of the NDC, Sami Jensi, who mentioned that indeed they are sticking to plan. And the plan was that the demonstration was to start at 3 p.m. and travel would make into the night, that is at about 8 p.m. At 4, they being law-abiding citizens, they would use the Nima route through Akwete, no longer going to the Jubilee.